Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, presented by the National Bicycle Dealers Association. Bicycle Retail Radio brings together retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders for honest discussions about the latest issues facing bicycle retailers. The podcast dives deep into the challenges and triumphs of the bicycle industry, providing an in-depth look at the person behind the profession. Aiming to deliver content that's both relatable and thought-provoking, offering real-world tips and insights to help you find success in the bicycle industry. There's a human side of the business, and the podcast aims to share stories, experiences, and strategies that you can apply in your own shop. Whether you're looking for inspiration, practical advice, or a sense of community, you've come to the right place. The National Bicycle Dealer Association has a rich history of supporting retailers across the nation. Founded in 1946 with a mission to strengthen specialty bicycle retailers through education, through research, through communication, and through advocacy. The National Bicycle Dealer Association is proudly supported by our members and our membership. If you'd like to learn more about the benefits of joining, please visit nbda.com.
Attention, bicycle retailers. The NBDA Retailer Summit is coming to Las Vegas, March 25th. Join over 150 of the industry's top retailers at Retailer Summit West, an exclusive one-day event featuring powerful insights, hands-on workshops, and unbeatable networking opportunities. Spend the day with top experts in our industry. Don't miss this chance to elevate your business. Learn more and register at nbda.com.
All right, listeners, welcome to the Flex. Today's version is our popular retail design Flex. If you're listening in the car, on a run, on a ride, this is one you can also watch on YouTube. And I guarantee you're going to want to do that today. So head over to the NBDA YouTube channel. The Retail Design Flex is our ongoing podcast feature focused specifically on store design, remodeling, and merchandising, produced in partnership with NBDA Association member, an awesome all-around company, Fixture Lab. Today, I'm joined by Brian Hawkins. Brian, nice to see your head.
It's nice to see you. Happy Halloween. I know that these can be viewed anytime, so it was in October when we recorded this, so I thought.
Makes perfect sense to me. And if you are listening and not viewing, if you go ahead and you look at that YouTube channel, you'll see why I said it's nice to see your head, because right now we have Brian's head floating in some spooky, ghostly, gooey kind of stuff.
It's very spooky. And you want to see my Halloween trick?
Okay, all right.
Okay, here it is. Here it comes. Watch out, watch out. Ooh. That's spooky.
That's
Look at that.
Very, very spooky.
Make things, and this is going to be later in the podcast.
You know, it's important to have Brian on this podcast in this role. He is very creative. Fixture Lab has been in bike shop design and merchandising for years. They help retailers transform spaces. So this creativity is really important in Brian's role. Fixture Lab works with multiple retail businesses: cycling, running, fly fishing, outdoor sports. If you don't know Fixture Lab, you need to know Fixture Lab. Not only do they help design these cutting-edge retail spaces, but they also make a full line of retail store fixtures that I know many of our P2 members and NBDA retailer members use in their space. So you can learn more online at fixturelab.com. And this bi-monthly podcast feature covers your most pressing questions. Yes, we get the topics from our listeners. We have a lot of listeners who reach out and they say, Brian, Heather, we love what you're doing and we have questions. Can you help us? And of course, we step up and we help. So Brian, it's going to be a great episode today, right?
Important that when you do write to us that you start out with, Brian, Heather, we love what you're doing. You know, like really like the compliment really kind of butters us up and gets the ball rolling really nicely.
It does. But we get several topics. What are some topics that people might write to us with, Brian?
Oh, you know, things like you might be thinking the more bikes I cram into my space, the better, right?
Oh.
Right. Or another question may be, we have a customer that sat down last week in our couch and he hasn't moved since then. What do we do?
That's a tough one.
I mean, I know that people listening out there are thinking, wow, we just had that happen. Um, or what's the best flooring to prevent someone from slipping when they're wearing cleats?
Oh, yeah. You never know. We get all sorts of questions, right?
Right. Send them all in.
Yeah, the best way to send those questions to us, we have a special email address for those. So ready, here we go. It's design@nbda.com. And you can send photos, videos, just an email, however you want to get your information to us. It's design@nbda.com. Yeah, it's
Send
awesome.
them all. The more, the better.
Yeah, so it's October. It's my favorite time of year. And Brian has definitely embraced the holiday season. How are things over at Fixture Lab? What's been happening over there, Brian?
Fantastic. Things are good. It feels busier now. And I would say I'm encouraged by what I'm feeling out there when I talk to people. Like it feels like the shakeout from all of the COVID stuff. I think things like the really good retailers are taking hold of things and really, you know, sustaining their success now, and ones that weren't as professional or not as buttoned up and not as solid of a business have had a tougher time. But we're really happy to be working with lots of people who are doing some interesting things these days. And it feels like it's ramping up, which that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm feeling like from the conversations I've been having with retailers is that they're working through the inventory. So now we're getting more narrow inventory, more curated. We're re-examining, rethinking how we're showcasing products on the floor, what products we want to put front and center, how we're going to use our space to focus on the services we offer as well. So yeah, and those retailers who are financially savvy, maybe working in some peer groups, are really just focused on now what the next step is forward. So
I feel like a lot of it's what we're going to be talking about today. Like there is the people that I'm talking to that are successful right now are really strategically attacking things. Like
mhm.
they're not looking at anything without a good strategic eye to things. So they're turning to us for, like what's the best practice for doing this thing, or how do we redevelop the space so that it pulls harder and we're creating more sales instead of just let's make things pretty or let's just make things look cool or whatever.
I agree. I agree. Well, it kind of flows into the topic that we chose for today. So
Totally.
should we jump into it? So
Do it.
anyone who knows me on a personal level, I love surprises. I totally like the best thing in the world is a surprise. It could be a little note, an email, a text, something at the front door. You get it. Okay. So this surprise that totally caught me off guard and made me so excited was an email that we received from a listener. And I wanted to share it. Brian, before I do, did we have to
Yes.
put the retailer in the retailer protection program, or can I share his identity?
I'm going to share his identity, so
Oh,
you sure can too.
okay. All right. So I'll just share the email. So here's what the email said, and I love how he started this. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Thanks so much for all the information in this podcast that has helped me plan out my space, learn about retail design, and continually optimize. I'm wondering if you could do an episode focused on space-restricted shops. I have a small shop, about 1,200 square foot, and I constantly battle with how do I merchandise the correct amount of things and the products. I don't want it to feel super cluttered. And on the flip side, I don't want to not have enough and lose a sale. I do have some extra storage space, but I love your ideas. So we got this email, and Brian and I think like within a set, like 30 seconds, texted each other. We were like, oh my God, I love this topic, right?
Yeah, it's perfect. It's great. And whether you have a small shop or not, all of the same concepts apply. Because I don't know any shop in America, whether it's 200 square feet or 20,000 square feet, that wouldn't say we need more room for stuff.
I agree. I
You
agree.
know,
So I know you connected with Jake at Monroe Velo, who's in Massachusetts, and he's actually a P2 member as well. So I get to know him quite closely. And I think we're going to kind of explore this topic today, right, Brian?
Yeah, and spoiler alert, I'm going to show you pictures from Jake's store, and he's doing great. Like, I think he's doing a lot of really good things, but we're going to look at those, and I'm going to quiz you, Heather, on what is going right or wrong.
I always get quizzed. I love it. All right, I'm ready.
All right. I'm going to start to share my screen here. Dun, dun, dun. I got to arrange things. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, it looks like my luggage when I go on holiday.
Right. Okay, good. I chose that image because I think that's the feeling that a lot of shops have when they're trying to fit everything into their store. You've got way too much stuff and too small of a suitcase to get it all in. So today we're going to talk about form and function, and I'm going to explain what that means. Ways to be space efficient, which comes through a lot of different ways, but fixtures, merchandising are key. We want to talk about problems to avoid. We're going to talk about using signage to your advantage in light of trying to maximize your space, which is an interesting way to look at it. I'm going to show you sample pics from stores, good and bad stuff going on from Jake's and others. We're going to be talking about bike like storage or bike display efficiency and lots more. Sound good?
This is exciting.
Right? Okay, so the small shop is a balancing act. It is a lot of what we help with all the time. And what we're balancing is form and function. Okay. And the fact is, the form and the function, you can't have all one and not enough of the other. You kind of have to be thinking about both sides of that fence
Mm.
in any store, but especially in a small one, because the decisions are more have more gravity in a small shop. So the form stuff that I'm talking about is the cool design and swanky features of the store and visual impact and like one of a kind things that nobody else in the world has. And then the function part is solid systems, efficiencies, organization, and repeatableness. I don't think repeatableness is a word, but
I like it. We've used
right,
other non-appropriate words before. So,
right, exactly.
mhm.
So does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through a bunch of things, and we're gonna be looking at in various ways this form and function balance that we want to strike inside the store. So I'm going to start out with fixtures and merchandising. And I wanted to say up front these things, and then we're going to look at some examples and I'll show you more of what I'm talking about. So the name of the game is when it comes to fixtures and merchandising, efficiency and flexibility. You definitely want to have lots of efficiency, lots of flexibility. You also need to have some good style. I mean, it needs to be attractive enough. It's the form and the function thing. You want to deploy an effective fixture strategy that uses every square inch of the space that you have. We'll talk a lot more about that. You want to make sure that you use all your vertical space. You want to beware of purpose-built display fixtures. I've
Mm.
got some really great examples of stuff like that. And you want to curate your selection so that you're not putting all of your backstock out on the floor, which most of the things that we're going to talk about are kind of like a duh for most stores. But we'd be remiss if we didn't mention, you don't need to put all your backstock out on the floor. You don't need to have complete size runs of bikes or complete color runs, or there's other ways to attack these things so you don't have to have that much product out on the floor.
Excellent.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to get exciting now. Ready? All right. You want to be careful with purpose-built fixtures. Do you know what I mean by purpose-built fixture?
I mean, would that be something specific for like a shoe or a pedal or I
You
don't
are
know.
right on it.
Okay.
Okay, so what I see a lot of the time out there, and I grabbed some images from a few different stores that are good examples of what I'm talking about. I'm not picking on anybody, and I like the visual aspect, especially of a lot of the examples that I'm I'm going to talk about here. But I think we need to beware in a small store or in any store really, about the purpose-built fixtures. So in this, purpose-built fixtures would be, what are you guessing, Heather?
Looks like I see a wheel display up top. I see a
Uh-huh.
handlebar display, which is really, there's a lot of handlebars on that. Um, Even the fixtures in the center maybe look a little purpose-built a little bit. Yeah, they're not.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so you're right on the right stuff here. So the handlebar thing that we see over here, it's really cool and it's got a lot of great aesthetic appeal to it and it's really nifty until something changes. The bars change, sails tank on handlebars, and then you need to put something else out there. The bar widths change, or the size of the tube changes on those things. And then suddenly you've got a much bigger deal, much harder thing to deal with because you've built this fixture that holds all these products in a very specific way.
Mm.
The things out in the middle, same thing. Like these cubbies, for what they have on display, they work great. But when you change up your product, it's going to be really tough to use those. And you see that, I'm going to show pictures. You see this all the time where something was built with a specific vision in mind and they fill it with that product, but then that product goes away, changes or does something else, and then that thing is vacant.
Brian,
And
can I chime in for a second? The
hit
other
it.
thing that I think about is when we do our store audits in P2, and I'm seeing it in this image you're showing again with the handlebars. It's a lot of space, very valuable floor space dedicated to a product that might not bring in that much revenue or turn enough.
Yep.
So you have to be
Yep.
careful with that.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, really good point. I think a lot of the time it is the product that the person setting up the store is enamored with. Like, I'm excited about handlebars in this case. I'm really excited to set up bikes, and that could be a very accurate uh, glimpse at what their customers are interested in, but sometimes it's not. So you got to be careful about that. To your point, make sure that the space you're using is worth the stuff you're putting in it. Okay, let's talk purpose built here. What are you seeing?
They look like handbags. I think I want one, but I mean, these are very purposeful. I'm seeing metal, like piping that was handmade to hold a very limited number of products and doesn't seem like it has a lot of purposes.
Yeah, imagine if you wanted to put a handlebar in this space. You just can't do it because there's nothing that would accommodate that. And if you do need to do that, then you have to change out the whole fixture and you have to unscrew things from the wall or change the wall or do something like that. And then things like this hook over here. I mean, it's just so specific that you could hang lots of different things on there, but who knows if that hangs next to the right thing the next time you merchandise, the time you re-merchandise that. All right, this wall, I love it. I love the fixtures in there. I like the display. I think it's fun and it's very limiting because there's only one thing you can put on this wall.
Yeah, so I don't love it. I actually hate it. I'm sorry. It's such a lot of floor space dedicated, and I'm a mountain biker to suspension that I can't see a retailer doing that because I just don't think it pays off. I think you can showcase and highlight suspension.
Well, this used to happen a lot more. It doesn't happen very often now at all. Because honestly, back in the day, the suspension products that were on the bikes weren't, the caliber that they are now. And nowadays you buy a new bike and you've got a pretty darn good setup and this kind of thing is less necessary. But using it as an example, like, I just got to think about that. It's really cool now, but imagine a year from now when you need to do something else on that same wall. Same issues. In this is one of the same stores again. And this one shows shelves as well. And in this case, the shelves are locked down. They're bolted to the wall. They can't move. which is less limiting than some of those other things, but still very limiting. So if you wanted to put jerseys over here where these helmets are, there's a really good chance you can't because it's about 6 inches. The shelf is 6 inches too low to be able to put a jersey underneath it. So just got to think about that.
Right.
Um, helmet displays are another one that I see often that have the same problem. And what's going on here on the left sets you up for what's going on the right. If you can't remove the fixture that holds that product, or you can't move them around or redistribute them, then when the number of products changes, then you're kind of stuck and you can end up really, really easily with something that looks empty or half empty.
And very hard to get to.
Yeah, well, there's that too. So I love the look of that wall, but we would be doing ourselves a much bigger favor by making something, by putting, this is all form, by the way, like to use the terms that we started talking about. This is like form. It's 100% like cool look and it gets the helmets out on that great background. But the function of it is less so. So we'd be better off to balance it a little bit better. We've talked about this a few times on different podcasts. This is the slat wall problem.
Yeah.
In this store, they've got the slat wall problem happening. So Heather, what is the slat wall problem here?
Well, the slat wall limits them to, obviously you can only put certain hooks at certain spaces. And at this point, they're trying to cram everything because it only goes so far vertical. So they really are stuck in this little portion of the wall, and it just doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, to me, this look kind of feels like, oh, my thing is, kind of feels like this. It's like you've got lots of real estate to use for merchandising, but you have chosen not to use it well.
Was that a image that you just shared of a grocery store during COVID with one thing of eggs available?
That's in fact, that's what I searched for.
I love it. No, it does. It creates an idea that like this is all that's left, and it's like it looks I don't know, cheap kind of.
Okay, so this is another way to look at this. This is like a graphic depiction. This shows slat wall or grid wall configured the way that we were just looking at it, and it has 27 products. That's what those blue things are. So the same wall, if we reconfigure that, use different fixtures and distribute the product much differently, you could fit on the same wall, fit 72 of those same units onto the wall. So, I mean, that's a big time space saver. And it's worth noting that the 27 products that we're looking at above only take up that much room on this new plan,
Wow, seems like a
which,
good idea for a small space.
right? Okay, so this is really big and important. The things that I'm talking about, this isn't just about cramming more product onto the floor. That would be all function, but we know we have to have the form thing too. Oh, there's an extra slash in here. It's about the strategy of making the function of the space perform well enough that the form can shine through. So in the store that we're looking at here, it's not like I want to just jam every product that I can possibly jam onto this one wall, but there's another thing that's happening in the store that we can't see in the picture. And that is just a few feet away is a real mess for this store where all of their customers tend to gather and it gets very clogged, cluttered, and it's a real problem for this store.
Hmm.
And what they're doing by kind of using the space very sparsely here and not trying to distribute products in a more strategic manner is they're just making that problem worse over there than in the area that we can't see. So we want to make a strategic decision to merchandise the stuff that we need to, in the places that we need to encourage the flow that we need throughout the store and to keep the aesthetic up so that things look like they're paid attention to, loved, stocked well. Just make it look like you're a mover and a shaker when it comes to the products that are on display. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
So I'm going to show examples of stores that have done good and bad things. Like this is an example of a good way to handle what we were just looking at. They have used vertical space much better. They've got way more shoes on display. So, if this store didn't have that many shoes, then what they would do is they would take out these shelves and they'd put something else next to those shoes, like maybe socks, and just use one of these vertical segments. But you would merchandise higher and lower on the wall. The argument that I get when we start talking about merchandising higher and lower on the wall is, well, isn't the product in the middle where people like to shop?
Ooh, yeah.
Doesn't that make sense? Like you look at this wall, and this one isn't as extreme as some examples, but people will gesture at this wall and say, isn't it really this shelf, and this shelf the only ones that the customer really wants to look at? And to a degree, that's absolutely true. But the stuff on the top and the bottom helps to create the setting for even those shoes in the middle. So I would put the most important ones in the middle, the highest turn, the shoes that are going to pull the best inside your store, I'd put them there. But then I would also merchandise higher and lower. The shoes on the bottom here are not uncomfortable to shop.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you have, some styles that aren't going to sell as often or just aren't as core to your business,
Mhm.
then put those down there and the whole thing feels more full. And a full display makes it seem like you're really, you're doing something right. Customers can find everything they need to there. And then let's look over here at the clothing. They've done great things here by using the mannequins up high. This is a perfect use of some vertical space because no matter where you are in the store, you can glimpse over towards this wall and see the great mannequin with the great jerseys and the shorts and stuff, and know that that's where you're going to go to get that. So we're using product as a billboard for what's below.
Yeah, it looks great.
We've seen this picture before, but this is a helmet display that's got a ton. He does really, really well with this helmet display. Sells a ton of helmets, and I'm not showing it because I think that you need to show 400 helmets in your store. But the density of the product, even if it were just one of these vertical sections, I think is worth looking at. Because I think that that is going to pull harder for you than a sparsely populated wall. I say that, and then, we could go the other way and be very curated and just show one helmet on the wall. And
Mhm.
that would be beautiful and it would be perfect for some stores, but not every store. Different kind of a store. Again, it's kind of, this is the shoe version of that helmet thing. Like they sell boatloads of these outdoor shoes. This is a very flexible system, so they could remerchandise half this number of shoes instantly, and it would not look empty. Just food for thought there on the density vertically on different kinds of fixtures.
Oh, this must be a what not to do photo, Brian.
I mean, you see it all the time. It's the ugly stuff that comes along with running a bike shop it's always there. Helmet and shoe boxes, they are a curse because they're so hard to hide. You don't want them far away from the sales process. You could stick those in the back room, but you don't want your employees having to run a mile to go back and get, 3 different sizes of helmets.
Uh,
So they end up getting stacked on the floor a lot. And I understand, it's a tough thing, but there's some solutions that we can deploy like this one that help to mitigate that problem. We do this quite a bit actually with stores because they really love the way that it.
Oh, that's the fixture that the go inside the cabinet,
Mhm.
right? The boxes are inside right there.
Yeah, we build a cabinet with the, you can see the little door handles there with the fixtures on the face of the door. And then you can store a good number of the boxes inside this thing. And that is a heck of a lot better looking than this.
Mhm.
So when we're talking form and function, this is a great mix of both. And that's why it's a really good solution. It looks awesome and it's very efficient and it keeps track of, kind of wrangles the boxes. All right, Heather,
Yes.
what's going on in this picture?
Okay, so this looks like the back side of a service check-in counter. And we do like to keep some service items near the check-in counter to help with our attachment rate, but it looks like they've gone a little bit the wrong direction. I think we have pumps and whatnot that are actually behind the counter, so customers can't reach them. And they're kind of just on the floor and kind of not really organized well. Is that what's
See,
happening?
you are right on it. In fact, this is the customer side of the,
Oh, it is? Okay. It's hard to tell.
yeah, well, that's part of the problem, right? Okay, so the arrows reveal what I was looking at when I'm looking at this. The just the pure lack of organization on the pumps is the problem. But there's for this size store, especially because this is a store that has space issues with, they're trying to figure out what to do with with the little bit of space that they have. There's probably too many SKUs there. And they've let them build up too much so that so it feels like a very, like a flea market of different types of pumps, as
Mhm.
opposed to merchandising them good, better, best, or something like that, where it's more organized and helps the customer understand the presentation. The the randomness of what's on this wall is another problem. A horn next to fenders, next to what that's another horn there, and then kickstands. It's just an odd mix, and that doesn't help the customer. So what we're creating here is an inefficient space where we're not utilizing space well, and that doesn't bode well for any store, big or small.
Mhm.
The kickstands, you were on it, like that's an odd choice these days to
Yeah.
put up on this wall. I would much rather have those in the back room because I bet you the customers don't ever walk in and say, I want the kickstand that's up there on the right. I bet they always say, I need a kickstand. And then the employee goes to this wall to grab it.
Correct.
So it's just maybe not worth having out on your very valuable fixture space. And then I don't know what this helmet's doing.
Maybe a test
I
drive.
don't know what the story is there. Like, was that just something that someone hung there by accident? Is it for sale even? But for this kind of a display, there's a massive amount of wasted space there. And that's a shame. What do you see going on here?
Well, this looks like a very nicely merchandised um, clothing, helmet. Yeah, that's maybe some gloves and socks display. I don't know, good use of space. Maybe it could go higher. It doesn't look too crammed. It looks pretty easy to shop, has a story. I'm not, yeah, I'm kind of a fan. I don't know
Uh-huh.
if I should be a fan or not, Brian. I mean, I think it looks nice.
Well, no, that's why I'm asking is because the feel that you get, your kind of gut feel when you look at this is the way that I feel about it. By the way, this isn't a store that I worked on, and the examples that I grabbed for these images aren't all things that we have addressed or not addressed. It's just like I will go out and search for images that are a good example of whatever we're talking about. So this is from a specialized store, and they've done a great job. They're telling stories. They've grouped the product there in a very logical way. They're using the vertical space on the fixture up there to kind of work as the billboard for what's below. They've got nice organized stories as far as the product is concerned. It's doing a lot of the things that we're talking about well. What do you suppose I'm looking at when I look at this?
Oh gosh, it just kind of like stops. So it doesn't go all the way up. And also we don't have the same products like in a line. So it's not very it doesn't really draw the eye in. It kind of feels jumbled and like it was an afterthought.
Wrong.
Oh, it's all right then. It's the brick. It's the it's the piece of wood in the center.
No, you're really close. There's nothing great about the way this is merchandised, but the thing that I threw this in here for is to think about this kind of a feature and how that impacts your merchandisable space. This store didn't need to put this column, this wooden beam in there.
Hmm.
And they didn't need to space this, the grid wall out on the brick texture. And when they did that, they created a scenario where that grid wall can't continue between these two things here. So you lose that or that 2 linear feet of wall space that could have been merchandised if it needed to be. So just willy-nilly doing jogs in and out of walls and little cubbies and things like that, that's a tough thing to deal with.
Uh-huh.
This is the same issue, in fact, from the same store, same issue, and it's the same challenges that we were talking about. The spacing of everything is so specific that it becomes hard to use when things change.
Hmm.
This is an example of a solution that has a lot of the same aesthetic that we were just looking at, but it's much, much more flexible because each of these vertical chunks in this display have a slotted fixture system in it, so they can move around the shelves, or they could put crossbars in there and put hooks and then take the shelves out or put more shelves in. They just have all the flexibility, still within the same kind of a look. So there are solutions that help you to have the form and the function that you're looking for in this case.
Oh, that's really nice.
All right, taking advantage of the cash wrap space is another good thing to think about. I don't want to spend any time on it. This is a solution that we deploy a lot, and that is to simply put product in the face of, or in the front of a cash wrap counter. It's not good for everything. Like, I wouldn't limit a category to only being displayed there, because it's, when there's a customer standing here, it's a terrible place to shop. However, it does add some merchandisable space for some common, items that are going to be grabbed during a checkout process, like like a bottle cage or something like that. So that's something to consider. Okay, so being space challenged is hard, but you still have to avoid these problems. And this is all about balancing the form and the function thing. And these don'ts really violate both. They're not great form and they're not great function. Hanging bikes from the ceiling in a retail space.
Oh, that's a don't. Okay.
It's definitely a don't. I mean, you could do it on the sides, but what happens most often that is the problem is the bike's hanging down in the middle. And it's from the shop trying to save space by putting bikes on the ceiling. Problem is, it creates a visual dam. Even though it doesn't feel like it should, it does create a dam. And it makes the store feel claustrophobic. It's just not good. It's not a good mix of form and function. There's other solutions that we could get into that would solve that problem better. We don't want to store repair bikes or customer bikes on or near the sales floor, because it's embarrassing for a new customer to walk in and say, how much is this bike? And for you to say, oh, that's a customer's bike.
Oh, that's never happened.
Right?
Right.
So you just don't want to do it. And it's tough to deal with. At times it's really tough to deal with, but it's just there's no form and there's no function to it. You don't want to stack stuff in the middle and ruin your sight lines. Your guys in a small shop, most of the time, they're going to have like a repair stand there, and they're going to be working on stuff, and they're going to be keeping an eye on the store. You'll ruin your sight lines really quickly with things stacked up in the middle, so you don't want to do that. You don't want to turn a blind eye to storage issues. Just because you don't want to deal with the the weekly bike delivery that comes in 20 boxes that fill up the whole store doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So we've got to really strategically attack the process of your receiving in this case so that it can be handled better without crowding out the customer. If you don't give helmet and shoe boxes a place to live, they're going to sit out on the floor, guaranteed. So you just can't turn a blind eye to those things.
Mhm.
All right, here's some stores, a couple of stores that sent us pictures for today's episode. This
Yeah,
is e-bikes of Jackson Hole.
fantastic shop. Yeah, we have an e-bike specific P2 group. So these retailers get together and they share topics specific to e-bike stores. I was
Yep,
this, and he has a very small space as well.
it has a very small space. And I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah, he wrote to us, don't be, I don't know, like, I'm so embarrassed or something like that. Don't be hard on me. And I was
Oh,
like,
no, I think this is a great example. And if I'm grading things, I would say this is higher on function than it is on form. Like the style of things is maybe where it's lacking, but he's using the space vertically nicely. And it doesn't, at least in the pictures, it doesn't feel too crowded. Could be that lighting is going to help a lot in a space like this. I'm not a fan of putting the bikes in front of the stuff that's on the wall. I understand the problem where you just don't have another spot for those, but that obviously gets in the way of the product that's on the wall. But it looks like they're paying attention and trying to merchandise things well, and bikes are organized on the floor. So that's exciting. It's good stuff, right?
yeah, it's not bad. Like there's little areas where I'd be like, I could see something there, but overall, yeah, not bad. Oh, and here's Jake's store, Monroe Velo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's doing a great job, and he is just looking, like it's not like he's thinking that he needs to revamp his store. He's just looking for the finer points, and hopefully there's things in what we're talking about that help him, that spark some ideas. But I love the things that he's doing here. Like this is a nice, efficient display. The tiering, putting the bikes on the tiered rack there is a nice, efficient way to do it. He's telling a story with the graphics behind it. He's mixing up the way that the bikes are displayed. So he's got some hung vertically, some on uh, wheel stands or kickstands over there. And then he's got this tiered thing here. So that's really nice in terms of merchandising. He's got good merchandising practices happening on the wall of accessories here.
Yeah.
He's really using the vertical space nicely, deploying different fixtures like the bins over here, along with the hooks and shelves to, to flatter the different products and make them look as good as he can.
Oh,
Uh,
good vertical use there, huh?
yeah, exactly. He's got the mannequin up top, which, helps with that visual thing. He's got a very small stool for trying on shoes that you can slide right underneath the helmets and then pull it out when you need it. Very efficient. There are a few shoe and helmet boxes on the floor, but it's not outrageous. Putting the uprights, these fixtures over the windows is counterintuitive sometimes, but it's super valuable space. And I don't think that looks bad at all. And as long as you've lit well from the inside of the store, there's not really a problem with doing that.
Oh, okay.
We've talked about that before. Like when the window backlights your product, you need to put extra strong light on the front of it
Right.
so it doesn't turn dark.
I think we talked about that in the lighting episode, right?
Probably, yeah.
On YouTube, scroll back to the lighting one. That was a good one.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so different display, same store, a lot of the same good things happening there. I think there's a lot of positive things happening here. I included this picture because he also asked about lighting, and this store, like one of the first things that I would attack would be the lighting because he has zero spotlighting. All
Yeah.
he has are these linear lights that do a good job of ambient light. But as you know, Heather, from our lighting episode, very, very important to work in the spotlighting to help areas like this little one back here and the other ones that we were just looking at. The story that's being told by the product would be so much more enhanced by good lighting in there. And
Yeah,
it's easy to do in this case.
yeah. This picture is making me just pull my eyes right to those lights. Yeah, I agree with you.
Let's talk about using signage to help sell,
What?
even in a small shop. Okay, category signs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing this picture because I wanted you to pay attention to all of the different signs that we can see in the picture and how valuable that is to the customer's shopping experience.
I love it. I see bar tape, hitch racks, tools, bike fitting,
Restrooms.
restrooms. Yeah,
So inside a small shop, people are always tempted to say, we don't need any category signs because you're not very far away from the socks, let's say. You can see that those are socks on the wall. I don't need to put a sign that says socks. But think about the things that are going on in this, and I could probably grab better examples, but this little fixture that's on the floor, when you're standing on the floor, covers up what is on the wall.
mm,
So I don't necessarily know that those are tools from this vantage point inside the store, even if it's a small store.
right.
It's helpful to have a small sign. These are larger signs, like in a small store, they could be very small, but it's still helpful to have that kind of call out that says, here's where this thing is. And in this case, we can't see a single hitch rack. I'm standing in the store and I can't see any hitch racks in this store, but that sign tells me exactly what I'm looking for.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
I think that's super important. Um, Signage these days could be a touch screen. I know stores that swear by having some sort of touch screen in their store so that they can scroll through a product that they may not have on the floor or that they can order.
Hmm.
Really, really important for a small shop. If you can't show a whole size run or you can't show every single specialized bike in your shop, then let's deploy this kind of a solution so that you can scroll through the available things and say, okay, we can have this bike tomorrow or next week or whatever it is.
That looks amazing, actually. And it's so big. If you're going to sell a bike you don't have in the store and you walk the customer over to that, it almost feels like the bike's in the store.
Right. Exactly. And it just feels right. This is not an uncomfortable experience for customers these days. So take advantage of that so that you don't have to try to cram every single bike that you're going to want to carry onto that floor. Think about small signs too in coordination with the fixtures. I'm going to show you a bunch of examples here really, really quickly. But I just want to get the thought process going. Like inside a display, a merchandised wall like this, you still have opportunities to put some signage in there to help customers understand what's going on, to tell them that you have extra product in the back, to tell them that if you can't find the size you need, that, we have more. So and this sign is bigger than I would probably do in real life, but there's lots of ways to do these little kinds of signs, and it's great for customers.
I love it.
Helps their shopping process because they catch on to these things and they don't, they're not going to catch on to everything, but every once in a while you're going to communicate something that they really need.
Hmm.
So this talks about if you need more options, ask us because we have more in the back. Do you need us to ship a bike? Offer extra services and sprinkle those into the merchandising. And again, it could be a 3-inch by 3-inch sign if it's a kind of an intimate atmosphere, or it could be a larger one like this. Don't see your size. This could be great for a clothing wall, like just so they know that you have more stuff in the back, if you have more stuff in the back, and they can just ask you for that. Corner bike shop is no longer there. Worked on them years ago, but we did a great set of little signs, and these signs were literally 5 by 5 inches,
Hmm.
but they just talked up different things about the shop.
I like that.
This talks about their bike parking station out front. Just a fun little fact, the globally bikes outnumber cars 2-1. Kids learn to ride easier without having to worry about pedaling, and that starts a great conversation with your salesperson.
Mhm.
Their bike washer uses natural enzymes instead of harsh chemicals that pollute the atmosphere or the planet. They sit on an advisory committee.
Wow.
We support and sponsor Bike Around the Buttes, supporting partners of the Tri Club. You can see what these are doing. They just kind of inspire fun questions or get a customer to say, oh, I didn't know that. I think those are great. Those can enhance even the smallest environment and help you to circulate through the product some. All right. Showing and storing bikes efficiently. We're almost done. I'm showing this because this is one of my favorite recent finds that I have been employing in stores quite a bit. There's this place, and you can go to the website up here, shopgearblocks.com. The owner's name is Brian, so he's got a great name. So, really good solution here. He uses Unistrut, which is a common thing. You can find that at Home Depot. And then he makes these hooks for the bikes, and they have bearings on them, and the bearing rolls through the center of that Unistrut. So you can hang the Unistrut from the ceiling, from cables, from threaded rods, whatever you need to for your situation. You can put those up wherever you need to, and then these hooks roll inside that strut.
Oh, wow.
And he makes different size hooks. And the beauty of that is, like I don't even need to say, but you're in the back room of a store. I wouldn't use this for retail display necessarily, but in the back room, repair bikes, you can hang the bike on the hook and then roll the bike close to the next one. So it takes good care of the bike instead of trying to jimmy everything with hooks that are too closely put together on the wall. So you can compact the bikes hanging and then spread them out again to pull them off safely.
That's a great feature for small spaces.
Yeah, it's a really, really great thing. And there's other, I know people that have built things like this for themselves. In my book, like this is a slam dunk. Just go there and talk to Brian and get that product for your store. This is a good example of a of a way to store bikes in a back room. Like these could be repair bikes using a pallet rack, and then use the vertical space here too. Like stack those things. Imagine putting the bike hook system underneath the bottom of that, so you can adjust the bike spacing, and then put the bike boxes up top or other products above. But that's a very efficient way to work in the back room, especially since the bikes are on both sides of the rack, if you have the room for that. Okay, I'm going to take you to a model for the last little section here. All right, so I want to talk about efficiency of racks for bikes really quickly. These are ones that go on the floor. On the right, we have bikes that are just sat on wheel stands. These are mountain bikes sat on wheel stands, and they overlap. The wheels overlap in the middle, and the bike is held at a nice angle for display that keeps the handlebars from clashing. This display that holds 10 bikes takes up 80 square feet. The display that's next to it there, and I put these boxes around it just so you could see what I'm measuring. This is a kind of a wheel up display that Rudy Rack makes, and others have made similar things. But that wheel up display doesn't seem like it would do a whole lot, but it does save some square feet. So if you're challenged in a small store to get more in, and if the product that we're talking about is cooperative with using a stand like that, with using a rack like that, then you can save some floor space this way. So that's a I think that that's a valuable thing to look at.
Wow.
Okay, we've got 3 scenarios of showing 18 bikes. This could be in the back room or it could be on display out front. The 2 on the left are solutions from Rudy Rack, our good friends at Rudy Rack. And the one on the right is a different solution. So you can see the number of feet, linear feet that this display takes up side to side here in each case. It's 18 bikes in each of those cases. And if we look at it this way, this rack is the Rudy Rack wall double decker.
Yeah,
The
it's nice to
bikes,
see like this.
the bikes face straight out and they jog up and down to help the handlebar clashing problem. It's a nice, very efficient rack. Because the bikes are compact and, close to each other, they get hard to work with at times. But sometimes that's what you need to deal with, form and function. This is the Rudy Rack straightforward rack, which holds them at an angle, angles them down a little bit. To me, it's a more aesthetically pleasing presentation for the bike. And it takes up a little bit more room. And then another common solution would be to hang bikes vertically on the wall. Sometimes people will turn them over back and forth, so that you avoid the handlebar clash. Usually there's a row of bikes on the floor. And you can see that this is not an inefficient display, but it does take up, quite a bit more linear space for the same number of bikes. And to me, a problem with this one is that to get to that bike, you're going to have to move a few of these bikes below before you can even get to those. And in this case, the top bike is still pretty high. So if it's a tough bike to lift, then you're causing problems for yourself. And I just offer that as we're talking form and function here. We've got to know what the function is and what the difference in the look is between those solutions before you can make an informed decision. How's that?
It's helpful to have it in photos like that next to each other. That's excellent. Thank you, Brian. It's a great topic, small spaces, lots of important stuff there, using that vertical space, form and function, making sure we're efficient, but we've got some form in there.
Yep.
Brian, can't thank you enough.
No, thank you.
So if you listen to this in the car, on your run, on your ride, make sure you head over to the YouTube channel, NBDA YouTube channel, and go ahead and watch. Lots of great images were shared today. Lots of great ideas to get you thinking. Brian always just knocked it out of the ballpark with this one. If you'd like us to address your questions next time, send them to design@nbda.com. And Brian, if people have questions, can they reach out to you? How do they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You can go to fixturelab.com. That's an easy way, and you can connect with us that way. You can email me, Brian, at Fixture Lab, or you can call me. You can always call me, 303-777-2014, or you can email Heather and make her get a hold of me.
It's easy, listeners. If you want to talk to Brian, we'll make it happen. And Brian and Fixture Lab also offers NBDA members a special deal on fixtures. So talk to him and he can help you out with that.
Heck
Brian,
yeah.
once again, so much fun. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. That wraps it up, listeners. Go be great.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning into Bicycle Retail Radio, presented by the National Bicycle Dealers Association. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please like, subscribe, or leave us a review. Sharing this podcast with your friends helps us reach more listeners and continue to bring you the best content. Remember, we host 2 shows per week with ever-changing guests and fresh content to keep you both informed and inspired. The National Bicycle Dealer Association is committed to providing valuable events, webinars, and opportunities for industry education and connection. Stay up to date by visiting nbda.com to see our event calendar. Special thanks to Francis Abbott for the promotional graphics for today's episode. If you're interested in advertising on Bicycle Retail Radio or have a guest suggestion, visit nbda.com to learn more. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Bicycle Retail Radio.